youth leadership session. Now I request our Dean Professor Vivek sir to escort our guests. Now I would like to welcome Naim Shah for a prayer.
Sharanu Siddhi Vinayaka, Sharanu Vidyadharayaka, Sharanu Parvati, Tanayamurti, Sharanu Parvati, Tanayamurti, Sharanu Mushikara, Sharanu Mushikara. Sharanu Siddhi Vinayaka, Sharanu Vidyadharayaka, Nitidhane Tamire Tame, Bhushana Pidane, Takilatambika Komalakane, Karna Kundalanarane, Sharanu Siddhi Vinayaka, Sharanu Vidyadharayaka, Uchimaharanam Dhani, Chapanam Velidave, Akshivahanam Tirupurandara, Vithalanandara Hare, Akshivahanam Tirupurandara, Vithalanandara Hare, Sharanu Siddhi Vinayaka, Sharanu Vidyadharayaka.
I would like to invite Professor Shripati Kalodaya sir, convener, Swami Vivekananda Study Center, Bangalore University, to welcome our today's guest and give an introduction of our guest.
Good morning, all of you. Our guest of the day, Dr. Viveka, the Dean of Management Department of this University, Sri Ranjan Padi from Sri Ramakrishna Mangalore, and our today's speaker, Sharad Vivek, Sagar. All my student friends and faculty members. I must take the privilege to introduce Vivekananda Study Center at Bangalore University. It was almost 2 years back, in 2021, on the birthday of Swami Vivekananda, January 12th. With the sponsorship and collaboration of Sri Ramakrishna Mission, Bangalore, the study center at Bangalore University was established. It's named as Vivekananda Study Center, Bangalore University. As we have so many about 27 endowment study centers and research centers in Bangalore University, Vivekananda Study Center also takes interest to review and to pass the message of the great thought from Vivekananda to the youth. Continuously, we have been organizing as an important activity of the center that every month 12th, today is the 12th of July, every month 12th, we are organizing Viveka Vani, a series of lecture on various aspects of philosophy of Vivekananda, Vivekananda's thoughts and his messages, especially to the youth. At the university gives you education, as teachers teach you in the classroom, as textbooks passes message to you to learn many new things. There are many other things which need to be passed to the younger community and taught. And in India, the most important is philosophy to the younger generations given by Swami Vivekananda. And that too, many of the management concepts, what you discuss in the revised form in the classrooms, in the syllabus, whether in MBA or any other management courses, they are deep rooted with Vivekananda. So in view of this, to pass on the Vivekananda's thought to the younger generation, which is more relevant even now and forever, such ideas to be given to the or to disseminate to the younger generation. We have been organizing this, and this is the 27th lecture series program since its establishment at Mangalore University. And I must say that the Ranjan Belay party from Vivekananda, Ramakrishna Mangalore, who has been taking keen interest in organizing all this. I think out of the 27, few only we have taken it like maybe organized in the university and some other colleges, but most of them were organized online due to the COVID during that time. And even when we organized online, we used to have more than 200 listeners online listening the experts talk on Swami Vivekananda. Just for 1.5 hours, and they used to participate in the discussion aspect. So we are very proud that the Vivek Vani's lecture series is going on very well, and we are very proud that this time, July 12th, Vivek Vani series, the 27th in the list, is organized here in Srinivasa University, Department of Management or MBA. I'm very thankful to the faculty of MBA, Dr. Vivek sir. I welcome Dr. Vivek sir, the guest of the day, Ranjan Belay party, and all you students to this 27th lecture series program. Today's lecture will be given by a very renowned person, young man, Mr. Sharad Sagar, on Swami Vivekananda and youth leadership. Very relevant to you. All of you can make note of this talk and write and see that what leadership you study and what leadership qualities are conveyed by Swami Vivekananda almost 150 years back. So you can just make a comparison and see, you can learn more. And I'm very proud to introduce Sharad Vivek Sagar. Mr. Sharad Vivek Sagar is a globally renowned social noted thought leader, powerful orator, and a widely followed youth icon. Sagar is the first Indian to be elected president of student government at Harvard Graduate School of Education. Raised in small towns and villages of Bihar, Sagar founded the national organization Dexterity Global at the age of 16. Today, leaders are trained in this institute, in this system, and I think received many number of people received scholarships. from top universities across the world. And he served as India's youth ambassador to United Nations, won national and international awards, and started their own leadership initiatives. Former US President Barack Obama invited Sagar to White House. Forbes listed him on the global Forbes 30 under 30 list. Rockefeller Foundation inducted him in the list of 100 next century innovators. And Nobel Peace Center invited him to the Nobel Peace Prize ceremony. The Queen of England included him in the Queen's Young Leaders list. He is invited to speak over 250 major stages across 20 states in an average year. Sagar reaches over 5 million people per month on social media, and we are proud today he will be giving the 27th lecture series program, Vani, on the topic Swami Vivekananda and youth leadership. So I am so proud and wholeheartedly I welcome Mr. Sharad Sagar, a renowned social entrepreneur, to this lecture series program. Once again, I invite all the faculty members, students, and guests of the day. And today we are so proud to have Mr. Vani, Deputy Commissioner, Income Tax Department, Mangalore. So I welcome him also to the program. Chemicala is a very popular name in India and from Kerala. He represented Kerala, his father represented Kerala in as a member of parliament, and did a lot of contributions and very popular name. Chemicala is a very popular name in Indian politics. So I welcome Mr. Chemicala, the Deputy Commissioner of Income Tax in Mangalore, and I welcome all who gathered here and also who are waiting for our lecture series program online. Welcome to you all. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I request our guest to lie into that. Now we have a talk through online mode. So for that, I welcome Mr. Sharad Vivekananda, renowned social entrepreneur and founder of Dexterity Global. What do you?
Am I audible to everyone?
Yes.
Thank you very much for having me. My pranams to all the seniors present in the auditorium, in the hall. My namaskars to everyone listening, those who are physically present there and those who are listening to the streaming in different parts of the country and maybe even the world. To begin with, I'm in the middle of a 7-day, 7-state sort of a visit. It wasn't planned. It fell that way. And it turns out that I have had to undergo a tooth extraction last evening. So I hope at times when I am not as clear as I should sound, you'll forgive me. It is a wonderful conversation point, Swami Vivekananda and youth leadership. And I was wondering this morning that what should I talk to you about when we talk about Swami Vivekananda and youth leadership? And I decided to break it into 3 parts. The first one is Swami Vivekananda and our national life, or Swami Vivekananda in our national life. Second one was Swami Vivekananda in my life, in my personal life. And third is Swamiji in action, what I have been able to see and witness. So as many young people who are seated here and many of you who have been a part of the Viveka Vani lecture series previously, you are largely initiated in terms of ideas and thoughts, worldview and vision, impact and influence of Swami Vivekananda on young people and old people, men, women and children alike all over the world, not just India. We know that the first Indian Prime Minister called Swami Vivekananda the fountainhead of inspiration. Mahatma Gandhi visited the Belur Mutt, and when he was asked to give a comment, he said, "Today I have not come here to speak. Today I have come here to soak inspiration from Swami Vivekananda. Young people should read him." And Mahatma Gandhi remarks at one point that my love for India grew thousandfold, grew manifold when I first read Vivekananda. Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose talks about how if Swamiji was alive, he would have spent the rest of his life at his feet doing his work, which eventually he was. No wonder in Delhi today there is a Kartavya Path and it has Netaji's statue right there. So all of India's greatest icons, that generation that fought for freedom, that generation that brought India back at the front, they were all inspired by Swamiji. Swamiji's life, Swamiji's work, Swamiji's message had a huge impact on that generation of leaders, and it has continued to so far. So I will not go too much into India's national life and Swamiji. We know the stories of great men and women of that generation whose lives were touched by Swamiji, who were inspired by Swamiji, scientists and industrialists, philosophers and writers, politicians and freedom fighters. Swamiji's words seem to have an impact that would transform their lives and through them, lives of millions of others. Swamiji had an impact on my life as well. The name that you read, Sharad Vivek Sagar, Vivek comes from Swami Vivekananda. When I was a small kid, when I was first explained the meaning of my name, when I was first told that Vivek in your name comes from Swami Vivekananda, I had little to no idea who Swamiji was. Because many of you must have chosen to read Swamiji, to learn from Swamiji, to reflect on his teachings when you were maybe 10, 12, 13, 15, in your early teens or right before that. But for me, they say that you get punya when you make a good choice. So I do not know if I was able to receive that punya because I did not choose Swamiji. Right before I was born, that was already kind of chosen. My father used to go to the Ramakrishna Mission library in Patna. And he had this inspiration at one point in time that either I'll join the order of monks, or if I'm forced into worldly life, I'll name my kids after Swamiji and I will make sure that they read Swamiji from a young age. So my brother, when he was born, Basant came from Basant Ritu, the season in which he was born, Vivek from Swami Vivekananda, Sagar from Ishwar Chand Vidya Sagar, and the name put together would mean Basant Vivek Sagar, Basant who will be an ocean of wisdom. When I was born, same way, Sharad Vivek Sagar. So the hope was that with Swamiji's name, with the learnings and teachings from great people's lives, we would become oceans of wisdom. That is a challenge for centuries. No one ever knows whether you become an ocean of wisdom or not, but you can at least begin sipping from it a little bit. So my parents must have felt the responsibility after naming me that when you name a child after Swamiji, how do you ensure that that child at least walks 0.1% of the path that Swamiji showed? So I grew up in small towns and villages of Bihar, and in every house where we lived, each one of the rented houses on the four walls, we had quotations of Sri Ramakrishna, Holy Mother Ma Sharda Devi, and Swami Vivekananda pasted in English and Hindi on every wall. Every morning when we woke up, my brother, my sister, and I, the first thing we used to do was we used to read the quotations of Swami Vivekananda aloud. And after that, we got started with work. Second thing we used to do was we used to read newspapers, which used to come one day late in these parts of the country where I grew up. And the third thing was we used to read and write, like all the textbooks and notebooks used to come home, and we used to study at home. For first 12 years of my life, I did not have regular schooling. But these three things I see as an important part of my education. When I was reading Swamiji at a young age, Swamiji's message was almost clear to me in very simple words. Build yourself to build India. One time, Swami Shuddhidanandji Maharaj, currently the Adhyaksha of Advaita Ashram, he and I were going in a car. There was an event in Rajkot on Indian ethos for modern management. So Swami Shuddhidanandji Maharaj asked me a question. He said, Sharad, you were very young when you were reading Swamiji. What did you understand from Swamiji's life? When a 7-8-year-old kid is trying to read Swamiji, what does he understand? So I said, Maharaj, now that you ask, I begin to think of it. And I wonder, I might have seen Swamiji as a superhero. I did not grow up with television. I did not read comics. But Swamiji for me was like a superhero. When there was darkness in this country, Swamiji was the radiant light. When there was hopelessness in this country, Swamiji was talking with courage, with hope, with faith that India shall revive itself. When other people had given up, when other people were talking about India's bad days, India's worst possible days, the current of those days was India's darkest probably. Swamiji was talking about India's glorious days from the past and how the coming glory in front of that, even the glory of the past will fade. So Swamiji was all about hope and courage and faith. When in India, we could not even unfurl our tricolor, Swami Vivekananda in Chicago spoke, and the whole world looked at India as a country that could teach so much to the world, from maths and sciences to the larger truth about man's inner journey. So Swami Vivekananda for me was clearly a superhero. And that pressure, not just pressure, it is technically a joy that you begin to feel. That Swamiji said that your concentration should be high. Swamiji said that you should commit yourself to a greater cause. Swamiji talked about intensifying that faith in one's own self. So all of that used to feel like, okay, this is the path that one must walk. So at the age of 12, I came to the city of Patna with my mother. My elder brother and sister had to write their board exams. So we came to Patna, and while reading these newspapers in the small towns and villages of Bihar, every time I saw the news story about some student who had achieved something at a national or international level, I wanted to do it. Because, you know, when you read Swamiji, you understand all that is good, great, and glorious. You can claim that. You can be who you want to be. And as a kid, when I saw all these news stories, the only problem was I could not participate in any of these competitions because I was not enrolled in a school. So I had picked up a small habit. I used to write down if there was a news story about some student who received a full scholarship to study at a top university. I would write down the name of the student, the name of the scholarship, the month in which the news story came out, who can participate and how. If there was a student who had represented India at a global platform, I used to write down which global platform was this, which month did the story come out, who can represent India at these platforms and how. By the time I came to Patna and started going to school, I had a diary full of opportunities. I started participating in all of those competitions. And by the time I was finishing high school, I had represented India in over 6 different countries, won close to 200 different local, national, and international competitions. But the story was not about winning. There was something more important that was happening. I would go to Japan, South Korea, Norway, Bangladesh, America, all these places, and I would come back and I would talk to my friends like any child would. I would tell them about the flights, the hotels, the streets, that, oh, in Japan, you know, the streets were so broad, the international flights are so big. I also used to tell them the ideas that young people put forward at these global platforms, the questions that were asked at a national competition. And many times I found that young kids who were my classmates, who came from other small towns and villages of Bihar, were studying in Patna. Many times They knew the answer to a question that everyone missed out on at a national platform. Many times they had ideas and creative solutions far more powerful than any idea put forward at a global platform. And I used to tell my friends, you should have been there. You should have participated. But I was quick enough to realize while I was still a young kid that my friends are equally hardworking and talented. The reason why they are not at these national platforms or global forums is because they do not know that these exist. So at the age of 15 or 16, I founded something called Dexterity Global. Dexterity had a simple idea. If there was an opportunity for our children and youth anywhere in the world, they should be the first ones to know about it. A competition, a scholarship, a conference, a workshop. Our young people, if there is an opportunity for them, they should be the first ones who get to know about it. The second part was also clear. Dexterity had a very simple mission, that we wanted to power the next generation of leaders. And what kind of leaders do we talk about? The leaders we talked about were the kind of leaders that Swamiji envisioned for the world when he asked for 100 young men and that the world could be transformed. When Swamiji asked, where are men? When Swamiji talked about those young people who will work like lions to solve modern day problems. So in 2008, when Dexterity was founded, the idea of servant leadership was clear. Swamiji talks about dasasya dasa, young people who are in positions of power, young people who have capability and strength, young people who have courage and conviction, but whose first responsibility is those who they serve. You can be a product manager, you can be a CEO, you can be a director, you can be in a leadership role. The first question you should be asking is, those who work under me, are they learning and growing? Are they as well served as they serve me and the rest of the organization? When you do that, automatically you serve more and more people. Automatically you increase the productivity, you increase the joy in what the entire team is doing. At Dexterity, the idea was clear that for far too long, there was a gap between our education and leadership. That far too many young people in our country relate leadership only to political leadership and political leadership only to bad leadership. But we need leadership in science, we need leadership in music, we need leadership in arts, we need leadership in all fields. So where will these kind of leaders come from? These kind of young leaders would come from India's small towns and villages. They would come from ordinary families. They would come from all parts of our country when they begin to understand that education is the way to actually lift our families up, lift our communities up, and eventually lift India and the world up. Swamiji, during his travels in Europe, Swamiji, during his travels across the world many times, he remarks that I've seen the difference. It is the education of people that can transform societies. It is the education of even the poorest that will lift more people up. But remember, this education would not just be about getting good marks in school or college, or just getting a transcript and then getting a good paycheck. Way too many of our young people today go to school so that they finish grade 10th with good percentage, then finish grade 12th with good percentage, then they go to college for a degree, and then they go to job for a paycheck. Education is not a journey from one transcript to the other, then one degree to another paycheck, and then one paycheck to the other paycheck. It is about what is that fundamental ability that you have carved within? What is that strength that you have within? What is that value that you can contribute wherever you are? If you are in a room with 5 friends and you're deciding which cinema to go to, maybe your viewpoint, your logic, your rationale, if that moves more people, that too is leadership in some way. But when you are present in a room, how does your voice change the room? How does your presence change the room? It can be within a family in the house. It can be within a classroom in a college. It can be within an office room in a workplace. But your presence should shake the world in a gentle manner. Your statements should carry some value and weight. Your contribution should make lives better for other people. At Dexterity, we have a very simple idea of leadership. We say when a 5-year-old girl child who does not know how to read or write eloquently, who does not know research or product building, when that 5-year-old girl child in a small family helps a 2-year-old girl child to walk, because the only thing the 5-year-old right now knows is how to walk. If she helps a 5-year-old sister, a 2-year-old sister to walk, then that child is a leader. When the same child is 15 years old and does not know research or product building yet or policy making yet, but that child knows how to write good English or good Hindi or Kannada or Telugu or Odia, if that young child helps write an old woman an application for a widow pension card, then that child is a leader. The same child at the age of 25 or 45 will go on to write policies for our country, will go on to build products and organizations for our people. That ability, as it continues to increase, will continue to increase the impact our young people have on the society. At Dexterity, we say leadership is your ability to deliver value through whatever limited expertise you have. Right now, the expertise for the 5-year-old is just walking. The value delivered is helping someone to walk. The expertise of the 15-year-old is writing. The value delivered is writing an application for an old lady to get a widow pension card. That expertise can continue to increase. So, as young people, we should ask ourselves, why do we go to school and why do we go to college? It is to take care of the last part of that definition. Increase our expertise. Be better writers and readers, be better sports people, be better researchers, and anything that you want to be. But when you become that, then you take care of the part in the middle, which is delivering value. Swami Vivekananda beautifully says, be and make. Become scholars and prepare scholars. Become leaders and prepare leaders. Become specialists and prepare specialists. That's one role that young people can play in everyday life. I meet many young people who say, I've become a consultant, I have become a chartered accountant. I do not know, how do I directly do spiritual and national work from here? And I say, can you look around and open the door for one more child who wants to become a good consultant or a good chartered accountant? Can you be a mentor in one student's life? Can you offer support system to one kid who lives in the neighborhood or has sent an email or a LinkedIn message just this week? That be and make is an important part of leadership that we can take forward. Swamiji in national life, visible to everyone. Swamiji in personal life, I've felt it every day. The education and leadership that we talk about, if you have any further doubt that it is education alone that can pave the path forward for India, you should be reminded in this moment of a young son from our country in 1888 who goes to University College London. Another young son from India who goes to Columbia University in 1913. The young individual in 1888 who goes to University College London and comes back to India, we know him as Mahatma Gandhi. The young student in 1913 who went to Columbia, we know him as B.R. Ambedkar. One would lead India's path to freedom and the other India's path to self-determination. When we talk about Gandhi or Ambedkar, when we talk about Nehru or Patel, when we talk about greats of our country, many times we look at what they were doing at the age of 50 or 60. What we need to look at is what they were doing at 15 and 16. What were they doing in their teens and in their 20s? And if we look at it, they were educated at some of the best institutions in India and around the world. But they were able to connect their education with people. Seva and Samvad was an integral part of their journey. As young leaders, while we are educated on our college campuses, service should be the bedrock of what we do. Dialogue should be something we should try and establish with strangers and known people alike. One question that we should also ask at the same time is that some of the finest young people, I think there is a net lag. One question we should also ask at the same time is, some of the finest young people from all across the world, hardworking and talented, meritorious and with go-getters, must have gone to Columbia in 1913, must have gone to University College London in 1888. Why does a Gandhi become a Gandhi and an Ambedkar become an Ambedkar? The world, when it looks back at that class year of UCL or Columbia, remembers Gandhi and Ambedkar and not many others. And the answer to that lies in the Indian thought. It lies in the greater idea of education that Swamiji talked about. And that is when young people are able to merge their educational life, their student life with India's national life, new things happen. Remarkable journeys are started. That is what that great generation was able to do. They were able to merge their student life, their educational life with India's national life. And they saw what was important for India at that point in time: freedom and self-determination, making sure that more and more young Indians rise and answer that freedom's call. Likewise, today, when you look around, you have to identify what are those fields which you will take up. Will it be making education more affordable and accessible for all? Will it be making healthcare possible and accessible to the elderly and to the young? Will it be transforming how we take forward different industries and fields? And will it be new thought, new ideas, new research which you'll come up with? This is an important part of our journey as young people. The dexterity journey that started 15, 16 years ago, after 16 years of dexterity's journey, almost 16 as we enter 2023, 24, I am proud to report to you. I report to you with humility at the same point in time. In last 15 years, these young people trained in the dexterity system, trained with Swamiji's ideas. At the core of their education is that pursuit of a man-making education that will help them in nation building tomorrow. These young people have received more than 175 crores in scholarships from top universities across the world, including the Harvards and Stanfords, the Georgetowns, the Cambridges, and the Oxfords of the world. Many of you might wonder, where do these young people come from? If you read the newspaper in December of 2021, you might have seen, or on social media, a viral story of a 17-year-old young girl from Tirupur in Tamil Nadu who had never ever taken a train out of her hometown and who was accepted to University of Chicago on a full scholarship for a bachelor's degree in medicine. This young student received a 2.5 crore, 3 crore scholarship. A child whose parents, grandparents, or even her, she could have never imagined studying at a top university on a full scholarship. All of the country's media houses were interviewing her. I, at that point in time, was in a different part of the country, and I was on Zoom trying to watch that interview, on YouTube actually, trying to watch that interview. And I saw that right behind her, in all of those interviews, was an A4 size printout of Swami Vivekananda's picture. And it was pasted right behind her as she spoke with all media houses. I asked her that I saw that nice interview of yours. What was even nicer was that you had Swamiji behind you. And she said, sir, without Swamiji, without that inspiration, I might not have come this far. So Swamiji as an inspiration was behind her, literally in that poster, in that picture. Last summer, you might have seen the story of a young child whose father is a daily wage earner who earns less than 200 rupees a day, who lives in a small hut, maybe not even 5 feet tall in terms of walls. And that child received a 2.5 crore scholarship to go to Pennsylvania to pursue his bachelor's degree. In his village, for 4 days, media people did not leave, the slum where he lived. And one of the media people entered the small hut where this kid was living. And the camera zoomed in. And on the cot, there were 3 books kept. All 3 books were books of Swamiji. Why I say this is the dexterity story, while working with young people from around the country, those who come from some of the most humble backgrounds that you can imagine, sons and daughters of drivers and shopkeepers, sons and drivers of daily wage earners and domestic help. At the same time, sons and daughters of young people whose parents were born in privilege or have been able to secure privilege. At the core of their education is Swamiji's teachings, that it is good to be born in a church, but very bad to die there. It is good to have a good starting point, but will you actually make a tangible difference in your life and that of others? Will you have a journey that is now better and longer and more fruitful and more meaningful than it could have been if you didn't have what you have received? The reason why I gave you that story of a young girl from Tirupur, a young boy from a village of Bihar, is that as young people, many times we decide on achieving big dreams. We decide on achieving big targets and goals. But in order to be able to stay inspired every day, in order to maintain and protect that faith in ourselves, in order to have a higher purpose and larger vision every day, many times we begin to slack. In all of those moments, do not just switch on YouTube and search how to be happy, how to be inspired, because then you'll find some motivational speaker who's saying every day in the morning, wake up and say 5 times, I'm happy. Do not do that. Many times, you and I, people like us in this generation, we go to YouTube looking for all kinds of knowledge and wisdom that we want to acquire in our lives. There's a famous joke story I like to tell, that you have today motivational speakers in different parts of the country, some who'll talk about how they were walking down a path one time and a dog began chasing them. And then they say that the dog was running and I was running, the dog was running and I was running, and all of a sudden they stop. And everybody is listening attentively by then. And then the person says, I stopped, and then I saw that the dog also stopped. Then I looked at the dog, and the dog looked at me, and then I smiled. And then I saw the dog also started smiling. And young people like you and I, hear these motivational lectures, and next day we have an exam or an interview, and we are sitting down and smiling because somebody said, when problems come to you, smile. Well, they are in part right, but there is something called contextual intelligence. There is something called context. The problem is, many of these stories are lifted from Swamiji's life, work, and travels. This story actually happened, and it is called a story. It goes by the name Face the Brutes in many textbooks, reference books, and many places, where Swamiji was chased by a group of monkeys. But Swamiji stopped. And when he stopped and when he faced the brutes boldly, the brutes went away. The monkeys went away. But remember, Swamiji does not just say face your problems. He also gives you programming and software and wiring for your mind, body, and soul, so that when problems come, you're actually strong enough and wise enough and mature enough to face those problems with courage and conviction, with faith, with optimism. That is the reason why do not just pick up one line and then leave the rest. Many times, jokingly, I tell some of my young friends that when you read honesty is the best policy, do not go and jump from the 5th floor of LIC on the next day saying, if honesty is the best policy, why is LIC not selling it? So many times the lines we lift without understanding the depth of it causes trouble. So one of the best things you can do starting this evening, if you haven't already, pick up books of Swamiji. Pick up the letters of Swami Vivekananda, lectures of Swami Vivekananda, talks of Swami Vivekananda, wherever you want to start from. Pick up Swamiji's ideas on Karma Yoga and see how you can begin bringing it into your daily life. That will be an important step in moving forward. I could have said many things. I want to end largely with one story so that when you forget everything, you remember the story and you're like, all right, the guy who came, he didn't say much, but that joke at the end was fine. So it is a story where you know the first part, I'll tell you the second part. If you know the second part as well, I'll thank you for, being patient. The first part of the story is, there was once a cap seller and he was going down a road on a lazy summer afternoon. He felt very tired and, he took a detour and he went and he sat under a tree and he kept his bag of caps next to himself. He fell asleep. 1 hour later, he woke up and he saw all the caps were gone. The only cap that he was wearing was the cap that was on. Every other cap was gone. So he was perplexed and confused and he was worried and he was wondering what to do, what happened. So he got up and he went 5 steps forward. He looked around and he saw that up on the tree right behind him, all monkeys had a cap on. So he put his hand on his head and he began to wonder what to do. All of a sudden, he saw all the monkeys put their hand on their head. So he saw, all right, looks like the monkeys are copying. So he gently touched his nose and all the monkeys gently touched their nose. Then he took out his cap and he threw it on the ground and he saw all the monkeys threw their caps on the ground and he just went around, picked all the caps, put it back in the bag and kept walking. Good story, right? Except 20 years later, there was another cap seller. He was going down the same road. Lazy summer afternoon, got tired, took a detour, went and sat under a tree, kept his bag of caps next to him. He fell asleep. 1 hour later, when he woke up, bag of caps was gone. The only cap that was on his head. This guy did not get perplexed or confused, worried, or, start wondering. He just got up, went 5 steps forward, looked behind. All the monkeys on the tree had a cap on. So he just smiled and put his hand on the head. All the monkeys put their hand on their head. He touched his nose gently. All the monkeys touched their nose gently. And then he just took out his cap, threw it on the ground. And this time, a small young monkey came running down the tree, picked up the cap, put that cap on as well and said, "Only your papa told you the story." And then he went back up on the tree. The reason why I tell you this story is that even monkeys, even animals within a generation learn. For us, remember, the past generations might have been able to do away with their mistakes or with many of our accidents by luck or by chance. For the next generation to be able to fix these problems, that will only happen through education and through training. And if the father of a cap seller does not tell him a full story and does not give him enough caution, even man does not evolve to the next level. But even if a group of monkeys are sharing information and knowledge, have maturity and wisdom, they can trick those guys even 20 years later. So at the end of the day, it is important to bring Swamiji in our everyday lives. I remember I was at one of our ashrams in South India one time, and a young schoolboy, Ramakrishna Mission runs a school there, came running to Swamiji. And our Swamiji's talk with love and with so much love. There is no word that I can put. So the young boy came running to Swamiji. Swamiji, I have learned Swami Vivekananda's lines. So the Swamiji there said, you will become Swami Vivekananda, no? So the boy said, yes, Maharaj, yes, Maharaj. So Maharaj said, remember, don't become Yashraj Films Swami Vivekananda. Become real Swami Vivekananda. So that is important for all of us. Swamiji is not about dialogues. Swamiji is not about phrases. Swamiji is not about one catchy quote and one flowery line in a debate, and then you win the college debate or the school debate. Swamiji is not about, viral speeches. Swamiji is about that viral fever, which once it catches you, then there is no lockdown, only opening up. And for the rest of your life, you continue doing national work. You continue to be a youth leader all your lives, within your family, out in the society, and in the country and the world. I pray to Thakur and Swamiji for strength to all of you, for wisdom to all of us, and for our continued journey as young leaders in this larger national pursuit and journey. Thank you very much. My namaskars and pranams to all of you.
Thanks to Sharad, Vivek, Sagar. Thanks for being here for Bangalore University, Swami Vivekananda Study Centers, Viveka Vani lecture series. I really appreciate you for taking time and addressing our students on this occasion. So in near future, we'll be very glad to have you here in the offline mode also. So thank you so much. Thank you. And many of the youngsters know that you are a best expert opinion in Combine and Karulpati. And they need your expert opinion in their life also in the near future. I request all the students to check and Google Dexterity Global to stay connected with Sharad, Vivek, Sagar. So thank you so much on behalf of Bangalore University and Srinivasa University. Thank you so much. Namaste. So now I hand over back to our MC.
Now, I would like to welcome our special invitee, Mr. Amit Chelindala, Deputy Commissioner of Income Tax Department, Mangaluru, to address our students.
Morning, everyone. Wasn't that a very energetic speech? Yes. The final applause wasn't that energetic. I think all of you guys were sleeping, or somehow I felt it could have been louder. Yes. But one last time, can you give him a bigger louder? No, I felt motivated sitting here in the front row. I could sort of think back of my childhood days. So I was the other side of the story, wherein he spoke of how as a 15-year-old or a 14-year-old he used to collect newspaper clippings and in very, very disciplined manner would follow all those quiz competitions, the other competitions, which eventually he would end up participating and winning. And I was the one who would, sort of spend his childhood days lazily, not spending much time into studies. Anyway, that's a different story altogether, but I think most of us would have gone through that part. Because otherwise, you would have been sitting there and in that lecture, right? Anyway, it gives me a great pleasure and honor. My greetings to the respected dignitaries on the dais. I'll keep my speech pretty short. Two reasons. One, you must, whatever wisdom you have to gather, and you've already gotten it, there's nothing much more than that I can contribute. And there are better speakers out there as well. And two, hereafter, I need to get back to my office as well. So, for that two reasons, I'll keep my speech short. But whatever little I can contribute, I hope that can help you all. Again, because it's about Swami Vivekananda, the ideas, the message, how it influenced me, if I'm able to convey that message to you as well, and if at all a little bit of that gets instilled in your mind, gets imbibed in your heart, when I walk out of this hall, I will walk out with a lot of satisfaction. Like I said, I was quite an average student. It was ultimately, when you think of Swami, you think of one of his most popular quotations, which is that education is the manifestation of perfection in mankind, of human beings. Quite often, we misjudge education to be the same as literacy, as Mr. Sharad earlier gave the example of a 5-year-old child, a 60-year-old child, or 25-year-old person becoming a leader. Yes, you heard that story? That's the difference between literacy and education, is what converts you into, or rather from a follower into a leader. Literacy, as you know, legally speaking, who's a literate person? A literate person is anybody, any person who is 7 years or above, who can read or write a language. You might have heard of this? Yes. Any person who is above the age of 7, or 7 or above for that matter, who can read or write any language. Whether it's Kannada, Malayalam, Odia, Hindi, English, Spanish, any language, you shall be treated as literate in this country or in the world for that matter. But how do you define an educated person? Right? That is where the key beholds. Like I said, how you transform from being a follower to a leader. All of you guys are MBA students, I presume? Yes, correct. MBA stands for? Glad you actually know that. Huh? You guys are into your second year right now? But first year is also there? Great. Anyway, now coming up. Now look at MBA. It's ultimately about business administration. When you think of business, what do you think of? Or what is the idea that comes to your head? You think of the Ambanis and Adanis of the world? Yes? Now tell me, what is the keyword that differentiates a Tata from an Ambani or Adani? That is generally spoken around in the corporate circles. You define an Ambani or an Adani as a business, but have you ever seen a Tata being defined as a businessman, or rather do you associate the word industrialist with Ratan Tata? Yes, correct. Tatas are known as from salt to software. Yes, and even beyond that. So there won't be a person here who has not touched a product made by the Tatas. That kind of respect comes from the kind of life the Tatas have led. And I'm using the word Tatas in plural because there have been Tatas before Tata as well. Yes, all of this combined, because the context of today is Swami Vivekananda, comes from Swami's message, which is that you need to go beyond literacy. You need to go beyond literacy towards the arena called education, and not just hold it in your heart, but spread it to the world as well. There are hundreds of thousands of kids who speak Hungary in India. Do you agree that? Yes. What do you think is the number of people who still live under poverty in India? As per, I'll give you some statistics. As per the World Bank, or even the WHO for that matter, the per day spending for a person to be considered as poor is somewhere around $1.75, which can come around to, let's say, 150 to 200 rupees. If you convert that into Indian rupees. That is the spending per day. Talking about consumption. How much do you think you would spend if you were to go to a McDonald's or a Pizza Hut, or even a college canteen for that matter? Easily at least 1/4 of that amount, yes. At least 1/4 of that amount if you go to the college canteen, yes. So I'm not saying compare yourself to them and eat less. So I honestly don't feel that just because you don't waste food, you won't end up providing food for a person dying of hunger in Africa or any part of the country for that. I genuinely don't believe that. That does not mean that you should waste food. That's not the message I'm trying to convey. You should definitely save food. But the idea is that even when you have that thought, convert that into action. That is also the difference between sympathy and empathy and compassion. You might have, sort of even used these words overlapping in your career, in your life, or you must have even heard others doing the same thing. Again, coming back to the concept of education. Sympathy is when you feel sorry for somebody else in the first state. Let's take the example of the person, of the child who sleeps in hunger. Empathy is when you start to feel what that child feels when that child goes to sleep in hunger. Compassion, the third arena, which is the most difficult part, mind you, is when you convert that thought, convert that feeling, convert that emotion to action. When you take action, you go behind that child, you do something for the benefit of that child. When I say child, we all know that it's actually in plural, it should be children, kids all over the country, and of course across the world as well. Again, education. This is what differentiates the literate from the educated in you. It doesn't matter which gender or sex you belong to, it doesn't matter which caste, creed you come from. All it matters is that thought in your head and your ability, your courage to convert that thought into action. I'd also like to quote the chairperson of this institution, Mr. Raghavendra Rao, because something, when I had a conversation with him a few days back, something he told me really pinched me hard and made me realize that is that one word which makes that sea of difference. I asked him, he is a very senior individual, he's running into his 80s. And I asked him, when you look back at your career, he was telling me stories about his CA ship back in the 1950s and 60s, when, forget Bangalore, there were hardly any CAs in India. And he's one of those stalwarts who managed to clear that exam at that age. Coming back, so he was telling me that one thing which he sort of carried with him throughout his career, which made him achieve whatever he has all these years, is courage. He had the strength, the conviction to take bold decisions. Again, the difference between literacy and education. If you're educated, and if you stand by what you believe in, you will take that extra step. You will take that leap of faith to follow your dreams. Your dream sitting here might be multiple. There would be financial dreams, there would be career-oriented professional dreams. There may also be certain social dreams that you may want to do for the society. Yes, you all people that, and I'm glad that at least some of you said yes to that. So the idea is to ensure that those dreams come into being, ensure that those dreams come into action. Again, to borrow something that a friend of mine used in his speech the other day, he said, don't just be, don't just exist, make a reason for you to survive in this world, for you to, when they say, when you walk into this world, when you are born into this world, you are the person who cries and everybody else has a smile on their face. Yes, correct? Something quite must have heard quite often. But when you die, you would want a lot of the others to cry for you, isn't it? You would want to smile. Not that I want you to die now, but later on, in future, as you grow old, into your 90s, or probably if you manage to clear the 3-figure number as well, that time, if you want the world to cry for you, you would have done something in your life. That comes out of education, that comes out of action. That message is what Swami wanted to spread across the world. Don't just be, don't just exist, have the courage to change the world. Again, something that I'm pretty sure one of his contemporaries, who later on became the father of our nation, Mahatma Gandhi, also beheld in his heart, in his mind, in his actions as well. Just to speak of one last ideation that Swami always carried forward was something known as spiritual humanism, because I am also pretty much, at least I carry spirituality in my heart. So we belong to that generation where we spend a lot of time in social media. We watch the so-called celebrities, their glamorous life, their rich life, yes, rich in every sense of the word. I happened to hear Sharad Khan give a speech the other day, in which he said the message that he taught his kids was, be rich first, then go philosophy. How many of you have heard that? At least he famously said that, you know? At least a couple of you raised your hands. So this was a famous statement, wherein he said, be rich first, and then go spiritual, or then go philosophy. But just imagine, if in your try to become so-called rich, you would end up hurting so many people. You would end up hurting so many beings out there. You would probably end up destroying the nature, destroying a lot of people's lives. Because it's not possible for someone to become rich without hurting the so-called natural resources out there. In order to be rich with sustainability, you need to carry philosophy with you. That is where the so-called spiritual humanism comes from. Where we believe that all our brethren, all these people sitting in this room are our own brethren, our own brothers and sisters. With this last quotation of Swami Vivekananda, I'd like to end my quotation, I'd like to end my speech. He said, we all believe that God is one. Yes, we all believe that God is one. We may come from different religions, different regions of the world. We believe that God is one. And we all know that, also know that we all are children of the God. Yes, correct. Then how come we don't believe this? If we have one parent, which is God, father or mother for that matter, why isn't it that we believe that everybody amongst us is our brother or sister? Think about it. It's just an idea to be honest. So with that, I will conclude my speech. I do not want to speak for a long time. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. It was a great pleasure to come before you to speak. Have a great day, and I really hope these such lectures carry on and take you to a great path of success in future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for your motivational words. Now, I request our Dean Professor Venkatesh to give a commentary. Now, I would like to invite our Dean Professor Venkatesh sir to give a word of thanks.
Very revered, respectful dignitaries on this, respectful guests and my dear students of the day. Indeed, it's an honor to me to be part of this program and a lot of learning for all of us to have a guest lecture session, both offline as well as online mode, and we had speaker from a distant location speaking to all of us. Indeed, first of all, I would like to thank the management for giving us this opportunity to conduct this program. I would also like to thank our Vice Chancellor, Professor Dr. P.S. Aidan, sir, for giving us and making this day in terms of learning and making this happen. I thank you, sir, for this program. I also would like to thank Professor Sripati Kaluraya, convener of Swami Vivekananda Center, Bangalore University, for making this program happen. Thank you, sir. Thank you for. I would like to thank Mr. Ranjan Palarpadi, who is the Chief Coordinator of Value Education and Youth Program of Ramakrishna Mission. Thank you, sir, for making sure that we have 2 guest speakers today. I would like to thank Mr. Amit Chenitala, who is the Deputy Commissioner of Income Tax, Government of India, who is an IRS officer and he belongs to Kerala. Thank you very much for coming, sir. We have a lot of people from Kerala. I'm sure that it will be a motivation and a guiding path for most of them to lead in this process of developing themselves in their lives. Thank you very much for your thoughts. Thank you for coming. I would like to thank Mr. Sharad Vivek Sagar, who has joined us online and gave us the talk in terms of Vivek Vani, as well as the Dexterity Global, which is one of the companies which has developed and made it into something amazing worldwide. And he's a very renowned and recognized speaker at various global forums. Thank you, Mr. Sharad Vivek Sagar, for taking us through. I would like to also thank Mr. Bella Gopinath Rao, who is an ex-serviceman who served for the Indian Army, worked at different locations and different areas of the operations, also as part of Kargil War. And thank you very much for being part of the program. Thank you for coming. I'd like to thank Srivatsan, who is the coordinator and part of the co-coordinator of Value Education Ramakrishna Mission. I think Srivatsan called me 36 times for organizing this program, if I'm not wrong. So he went on calling me and I went on postponing because of various other schedules and other programs. Thank you, Srivatsan, for having that patience and patience for ensuring that we all come together for this particular program. I would like to thank student coordinators, the student coordinator, who is the president of student coordinator, Razi Mohammed. I would also like to thank Mithun. I would also like to thank Amisha and all the students for being part of this program and taking this program forward. I would also like to thank the departmental heads and all the faculty members for ensuring that the students are here and we have a lot of learning to do. Lot of learning because I'm very much indebted to this organization known as Ramakrishna Mission. A lot of learning happened in my personal life during my PUC as well as my graduation program. The mission has helped me in terms of having a path or having a real goal in my life, which would lead not just for making money, but for something beyond life or bigger than life, and have a greater contribution to the nation. So those thoughts. First to serve the nation. So the amount of service Ramakrishna Mission has done to mankind is phenomenal. It's very big in terms of Swachh Bharat and so many other programs and so many other methodologies and training concepts for youth. In fact, we have one program and all of us, most of the students who are seniors have attended one session which was conducted in the mission in terms of leadership. Keep organizing this program so that be part of the session. I'm sure that we'll add more value to the country as such and the nation in general in terms of development. Because knowledge should help us to add value to our citizens. We are 144 brothers and sisters. So we need to work together and make our nation great. I hope that all of us will be part of this process. Thank you very much. I once again thank all of you for being part of this program. Thank you.
I think time one minute to thank Vivek sir for giving a lot of time and patience. He was organizing a program for Shraddha for MBA students. This sir is the first college, the Srinivasa MBA college, the first to send the list of students along with the money. And that much of commitment and dedication is having towards the work. And thank you so much. And don't need to glorify again, but it's a very good friend of mine, Swami sir. So he go as when he cleared IRS, Shashi Tharoorji tweeted so beautifully that he got an opportunity, he got an birth right to continue in the politics, but he chose IRS to serve the country. So in spite of his busiest schedule, you cannot know how IRS typical deputy commissioner job is. So it's very difficult. So in spite of that, I just asked what's your office time? Even after IRS, time is not so liberal. So 9 to 7 I'll be in the office. So that's how typically they work for the country. So congratulations and appreciation to you all for giving a lot of time. So Shripati Kulas is our own on behalf of Mangalore University. We thank Srinivasa College, Srinivasa University and Department of MBA for providing this wonderful opportunity. Yesterday I called to Honorable Vice Chancellor Aikar sir for inviting in the program. He is out of station. He extended his support for the program. Thanks to him and all the members of Srinivasa University. Thank you so much. Nice day.